Shelley here with Sirius Talis Moon and Jupiter Hour. The moon is 11 degrees Scorpio, midheaven 26 degrees Scorpio, ascendant 11 degrees Aquarius. Venus conjoins with Saturn in Aries. And there's also a little bit of a eureka to Chiron and Aries. You're in a bit of a say. Well, Jupiter almost turning direct on 15 degrees Cancer. Mars closing to full out. Well, this is a eureka that overwhelms even me because um, many of you know how I talk about even Aries, that her vice was that she was okay with rape because she was disincluded from society. But here are a couple of dots that began to connect with the history and context. And it goes like this. The Templars were the ones that were allowed to do banking and usury. And the church was reliant on the Templars. And this may have appeared in several segments in history before Christ and after Christ. And in that society, the Templars' rituals, and they had to do with gods like Mammon, Baal, I don't know, Baphomet is, how should I say that? I think they maybe even sacrifice, if they sacrifice children for the fertility goddess in humanity, there really is no reason to expect. Okay, you understand my logic? It's like if humanity sacrificed the children for fertility goddess in humanity's history, then is no logic to expect from humanity. Common sense is not common. Um, but the logic was that they give a child to the goddess of fertility so that there will be fertility in children. Um, again, and the sacrifice of the child, it wasn't even like, slaughtering one of our cattle so that we can have ritual child sacrifice is gruesome. It's not even about mercy killing of the child. If we see it as previous logic of, let's say, that they would offer the god one of their own to connect with the god, or just like if people had cattle, then in some tribes, like Bedouin tribes, they would be committed to slaughter the last sheep if a guest came. But 3 days after a guest went away, they were allowed to rob the guest because they consisted out of robbery. But they consisted out of robbery because they did a genitalia mutilation, and also to the girls. And they did a lot of rituals. Men did rituals on the women. And the women lost the wealth and the land lost the fertility. Just 100 years ago, this land was so fertile, and we can still see in the Negev the sugar canes. And I was told by the people that the back of the camel, they couldn't see the back of the camel with the sugar canes. And they're right, because we can see the traces of the sugar canes. But when there is such practices in society, and see, they were very hospitable. If a guest came, and it already when they lived in the desert, they had to slaughter the last sheep even. So, what only thing was missing? The hospitality was there. This is important for native people like Sami people, because Sami people, maybe Inuit as well, I don't know. What I heard from them is they have tradition where they believed that when people did not share enough of the land, then they lost land, and they were did not have enough food, and there were wars, and they were persecuted, and so on. But with the Bedouins, they did share. They did share, and they shared enough, and this is the equator. I don't know about the story of Sami people, because Sami people were persecuted to the poles. And this can happen to Bedouin people, but also Palestinian and Israeli people. And basically, Bedouin, not only do they share, they're so hospitable that even if it's the last sheep they have, they still are obligated to share it. So they do the sharing of the resources. What they don't do is the fact that, and you're in a better per se, the girls, the sexuality cannot be shared. Also, the Inuit have said in a story to remind them of that. And it is the square, in astrology I see it as the square between Royal Star and Balgedi, which is sharing the resources, which is exactly the thing of slaughtering the last sheep to be hospitable for the guest, or for vegan people, I don't know, the last plant, but they did not have plants because they did not have suffice plants because of this. They had plants, but not enough. It became desert because, although they shared the resources and they did share, they were very hospitable, but it became desert in the equator. Very fertile area, the juncture, we have the Mediterranean Sea, the temperature, good temperature. The bridge between the north and the south, the east and the west, one of the most fertile areas is us and the Nile. But this area became desert. Around the Nile, around around the Mediterranean, the juncture of three seas, where there is the Jordan River, the Mediterranean, and with Mount Sinai, and also Eilat, but the Red Sea. And this area became desert. Just think about how impossible for such area, for the south area to become desert. But this happened because, and Beta Pesay tells us the story, and because they did not treat the girls and the women with respect to their sexual and not sexual self. If the Middle East, and this is why people are so occupied with peace in the Middle East, if the Middle East is the core of the earth, with the north and the south, the east and the west, the north and the south, and this is point of alchemy. If at the Middle East people don't rape, don't traffic, nowhere in the world will be rape and traffic. This is also why they blame Israel, because I was like, it's such a small country. It's not a sovereign country. That they blame the Jews, that they blame the this I understand. But why Israel? Such small country, I was like, how come such small country? But all the world, it seemed, when I was taught at high school that they were blaming the Jews for blood libels and so on and so forth, as it seems reasonable, because like, why would people slaughter children and do blood rituals with the blood and so on and so forth? But ritual abuse was for the gods of wealth. But here is the thing. If we don't rape the women, if we don't rape the children, if we don't rape the boys, the boys, the boys in the secret society, then there is wealth and there is prosperity. Now, and this is with the understanding that each and every person, a life energy, is individual, is an individual sovereignty. And each and every person has their own land. For example, when I looked astrocartographically, Rahu Rao, I'm coming to my Rahu maturation. Rahu is what we meant to materialize, and it's in the fourth house, which means a home, a house, a family. Present with Chiron, which means I have to heal something about a home, a house, a family. But also tradition. It's very, very strange to have Rahu in the fourth house. I think, yes, also my mother has Rahu in the fourth house, because fourth house is our roots, is where we came from. Rahu is where we've never been. And so I was wondering about this, and I wanted to order a talisman from an antlers, from the antler of a reindeer, and because it was Norwegian time, it was cancelled. And then I saw actually Freya that talks about, and she noticed also people having calling, because my Rao line is around the Tromsø Sommarøy, which is where Sami people are. And I was like, but Rao is meant to materialize. If it was Ketu, it would make sense that it would be to go within and so on and so forth. And she said maybe people are called, I don't know, to work with Odin or something of the note, or maybe, and she said, but Freya is not to be called for to feel loved. It's for to bleed beautifully. And indeed, they are going through a very, very harsh winter, even for the Arctic. But when I ordered this talisman, the reindeer showed me the fertility of the Arctic. And I felt very loved. And I tried to understand this with myself. So I tried to learn more about Sami people. And I tried to learn more about Inuit people. And I tried to connect this because Ketu is where we came from. So not to forget the wisdom of where I came from, which is, I was born Middle East. I'm half Israeli, half Dutch, but was born Middle East. And then I began to understand also in Prophet Amos, which is Jewish prophet, he talks about usury and trafficking and arranged marriage. And he warns that the people will be, basically the Israelites, will be in exile because of these things. It's not impossible that a lot of the First Nations that identify with the Israelites, they are a part of that exile. And then it made very, very, very much sense, because I saw there was a lady that helped to knock down 52 brothels run by a madame, but Israel, and she was Israeli, that was trafficked. And she got no help whatsoever. All the feminist organizations went for Marcel. And then she noticed only the people that would tell the gruesome details, but also I was in contact with a lady that was trafficked, and she was the children were going through electric shock in the kibbutz and the moshav, where they were growing the cattle. And she was trafficked, and eventually she had drug addiction because she needed the drugs. Not unlike the lady probably for outside that is all night. And nobody makes sure that she has a place to stay. She doesn't need to be raped. And even when she raped, she doesn't have a home. Her mother has a home, but she doesn't. And this is where basically we see, yes, Israel is going to be in such exile. And probably the people will materialize going to the poles. Because they could be trafficked there, or they could be escaping there from the equator. Why? Because the equator, and Palestinians are right, this land was never occupied a lot. But Palestinians forget to mention that they also, some of them do genital mutilation to the women. They also rape the women. They also rape the boys. So they should not disinclude themselves from that very true declaration. Nobody could occupy the Middle East for long. Why? Because the land pushes away. It pushes away, but until the culture that doesn't rape also in the hidden. Now, when I talk about this lady that was trafficked in Moshav and Kibbutz and so on and so forth, so ritual abuse, and then she came out and she began to channel, but she would say whatever guidance would tell. And sometimes guidance would act gaslighting. For example, I tried to talk to her, and her guidance was gaslighting. They didn't allow her to hear that because rape causes communication problems. But from her I know, if woman was not addicted to drugs, she would have no home. But here we see even woman addicted, still no home. The only way that she could come out is she told her story as the hero's journey, and she talked about prostitution. But it's not prostitution. She was trafficked. And she was trafficked in the kibbutz and the moshav. The kibbutz and the moshav is a very unique settlement form that is cooperative and later was privatized. Some of them were privatized, some not. But these are yes, people were associated with land. Okay, what they had, they were not broke. Let's say, okay, they were not broke. They always want to present themselves as salt of the earth, but they did not do anything about the ritual abuse and the mass rapes that are happening in their own, in the cream de la cream. And as long as she talked about the prostitution, she would get help, she would get everything, business, everything. But a lady that saw it as trafficking and knocked down a trafficking ring in Israel by someone like Ghislaine Maxwell, you got nothing. The minute I mentioned, but I said, oh, this is very lovely, and here she makes, the lady that spears said, she makes a great art, and so on and so forth, and marketing her art, but the lady that knocked down the ring, and I said, it's also important to remember the ladies that knock down the rings, the ladies that are not willing to share, some of them parents are not willing to share all of their stories and so on and so forth, and they too should be receiving assistance, should be receiving help. Marcel. And what the lady that was not getting assistance told me, they would sell her, women would sell her photographs for money. This is why the people that in the equator, they're persecuted to the poles. They're persecuted to all over the world, okay? Kol ktsavot olam. They're persecuted to the eke of the world, to all the corners of the earth. Why? It's like explosion. But also Palestinians. And it's also because the boys were raped in the secret societies. Now I want to talk about the fact that of the Templars and the church. The church was looking for sanctity, and they say only to marry virgins. But in regimes, also in the East, in regimes where the power of the girls is taken, their sexual energy is siphoned, even if the sex is consensual, or even will is consensual, but is incubus, but is siphoned, like people who run harems, then the regime is very bad. It's very bad for the people. And the people are oppressed, where they are preferring the boys over girls, but the people are oppressed, and they will get more girls. Now, when the Christians, what the church was looking for the virginal girls, but the Templar were taking the children to be trafficked to royalties everywhere, to loot the money, to extort, and then the monarchies would be indebted to the Templars. But the Templars wanted to cash in on the debt, but the monarchy will not pay. They began to persecute the Templars. As per the girls, they were looking for virginal women. There is no virginal woman where all the girls are raped. And Eris here was basically the girl that was raped. It was called Hor. It was excluded from society. And she too, Trojan War. Because as long as there were girls, they were considered pristine, then this thing done in secret could not be known to society. As long as there were women that thinking that, let's say, this lady over there is whore, made bad choices in life, made bad choices in men, was not discerning with the sexuality, bullshit. She was not protected by her father, who was big criminal. We can even see it as her father trafficked her. If he cannot protect her from being trafficked, it means that he effectively traffics her. And his family left because they wanted to assassinate them. $30 years. And she's looking like a young girl. Which means she was doing that since girl. As long as we think that, oh, she's addicted to drugs, they try to give her apartment, they try to this, I try to put her in hospital. No, all of these places traffic. But here is what happens. When society blames the trafficked person for the choices, for the this, for the that, and doesn't see what's unveiling in society, and then, if this is the role of Aries, it begins to happen more and more until there's no woman virgin. How will there be virginal woman if all the men rape all the girls? And how will women be virginal if men siphon energy from women? Now, this happens to the boys because the boys are raped in the secret societies. And the boys are called whore. And then when they have what it develops is some sexual kink. For when they are with women, they call her whore. Because they were the whore. And they try to, yes. They try to process the trauma. Now, what does it do to the wealth of nations and to the wealth of people? It depletes fertile land. Even Europe is getting desertification. It's getting yes, it's becoming desert. I say, oh, it's illegal cutting of the trees. Why is this illegal cutting of the trees? Because there were rituals in the forests. When I know that because when I dug half moons in the Negev, there were people that are always in the astral watching people, and they watch all of society, and they were saying that these forests they contain everything because it triggered them to even think about the forest, because in the forest there were ritual abuse. And so I understood that to make the desert flourishing again, we have to abolish ritual abuse, because the people cannot. They began to forest Sahara with half moons, which inspired my project. And many women, many countries in Africa became more aware that they should abstain from being with men. Why? Because men were warlocks. And men are never warlocks unless they are raped in secret society. A man does not rape. A man is provider. A man is not just provider because he is patron. Not at all. A woman is also as kind of her own sensual self, and her own light is providing nourishment, is by just being. But a man is also like that. And if man rapes, it's because there are secret societies. And this is with Saturn right now is conjoining Venus. Women need to understand, if your man is acting, or if men around you acting weird, have you noticed that they all have same pattern? But this is because they are raped in secret societies. Or they were raped in secret societies. Because they would never follow. When a man was nourished, well raised, not raped, not abused, he will never fall for this type of indoctrinations. Because he will have mind of his own from being child. And those things are connected with intelligence, and are connected with banking, and are connected with religion. And also, ladies need to know, if there's one woman raped in your society, all of your men are in it. Even if she was raped by one man. It means that all of your men know something and they don't say. And they don't do. And a lot of women. If it's one homeless in the city, it means all of the city knows something is going on. In Netherlands, we had case for Petertje Oort. Now, Petertje Oort was ritually abused and sacrificed. Everybody knows. Then his brother killed himself. And a lot of people in the true crime series at the comment section to say, yeah, I wouldn't grow my children in that town. Come on. If you wouldn't grow it in that town, you wouldn't grow them in Den Bosch and in Amsterdam and in Utrecht and in Nijmegen and in Giton. And this perception harms men the most. For that thing is one woman is cheap, and one woman is not. Because what they show, that the genitals are gone. It's not genitals, there's no penis there. What is there is a demon. Not demon like a Beta per se, not demon like Lilith. That this man was raped and he was traded, he was sold. So he believed if he asked for more price for him to be a prostitute to someone, then he is high price. And then he would look at women and say, for this woman is cheap. And very likely this woman, if she's dressing for herself, maybe to connect with her femininity. If she's not dressing, she's not dressing. If by any chance she was with him, probably she was with herself in astral and tried to be in there and she didn't know. And in rare cases where someone was with, then she could say, who this person? Okay, but does he respect me? If he does respect me, it's okay. If not respect me, it's not okay. Not okay, say bye-bye. She said bye-bye. Now she's cheap. Because she decided her energy is not here to be siphoned. Because to sort his sexual frustrations from being raped in the secret society, he needs to tend to that, not to blame it on the women. And very likely that woman was kidnapped and tortured before she was even in interaction with him. And all the women around, they are preserving that look at themselves that I'm a married woman, I'm this, I'm that. They are Ghislaine Maxwell's. Aries' role was destroying war because all the women went through for what the women that who raped his children went through. And the towns were besieged, and the place was conquered, and everything but the conquerors themselves. If they would do the same thing, also they would be exiled. And it affects all over all corners of the world. The Arctic is frozen because there is anomaly in the temperatures in the equator. The Arctic becomes not frozen, overly not frozen, because it's excess heat. Why excess heat? When women are raped, what happens? The water depletes. At first, there is an influx of the image of power, of the image of wealth. It can be like a man looking glowing and so on and so forth. Women maybe can be with him once or twice. But then she noticed her energy drained. She says, what is this? She cleans her house, she cleans her messages, she cleans her aura, she cleans her food, she cleans her diet, and then she cleans the man. He was a warlock. And then she begins to be radiant again. But what happens? With Medusa Gorgon, she was doing that. And this I want to give shout out to lady, I don't know where is she from, but she talks about Medusa Gorgon as the myths. This is Maputi Semenya. She talks about Medusa's true identity, and she brings the story of Medusa from African countries. Shrine for Medusa there is in Libya, and the shape or the geometrical shapes for Medusa come from, attention, what are we working with? Malachite. What did I ask? Where is this malachite? I don't know if this malachite is from Congo, Cameroon. I cannot make it up. I attended to kidnapping of Haymanut Kassaw. Is Haymanut Kassaw Ethiopian religion? Reader that was very supportive of the things that I was going to, was talking exactly about these things and going to a lot of these things. Like the Sefer, where's the origin? Ethiopia. And Maputi encourages women not to mingle with these warlocks. And I see a lot of African women saying, do not mingle with these warlocks. How men would siphon their energy. They would, during orgasm, instead of being connected with the partner, they would try to manifest of what car, of what this, or what that they want. All that they manifest worth nothing. It's like a kingdom of gold, but with no food. And if I take a look at Krasia Tasio, she talks about Vyacheslav, and she said Vyacheslav, that was a child, he said, there will be excess heat, and there will be plenty of gold, and people will build with gold, but no water, no food. And these warlocks, what they try to do, they try to present themselves as the provider of the water. They pollute the water, and then they want to control the water. But the water they offer are either with chips or with pollution. If I buy a bottle of mineral water from the best of springs around the town now, it's with fluoride. Here I have behind me Deneb Al Gidi. We bought it because when the war with Iran began, the most prep my mother was willing to do was to buy a 6-pack of water. Israeli spring Ein Gedi, but next to the Dead Sea, with magnesium and so on and so forth. Amazing. But sulfur, chloride. Let's see what the different names of fluoride, because they may be hiding that. Yeah. calcium fluoride, which I think sodium chloride. Let's see if they took it out. What is gofra? Sulfate. No, I think this one might be okay, but that would be good. But the other ones, first of all, it's a good thing, then I will know to buy this water. um, but I need to see what other components. But anyway, so first of all, we may have found the saint in the sodomy, but with this water without fluoride. But if I buy competing company, it's with fluoride. So if this is indeed without fluoride, I might be buying another 6-pack. But this is if this is indeed water that is actually watering, then this is a result of me working very hard to talk about all these things. For this would probably be the Venus Saturn. I found actual water. um, yes, I may have found water that is actually watering. So that's good news. But other companies of mineral water have fluoride. Um, so I may have found my water. Now I will need to buy this and drink this and make sure I can convince my mother to drink water that's actually water. So we don't lose more teeth. Now, I said Venus, Saturn, we close in a cycle. With the things that we tended to may have results. And I definitely tended to water that actually waters. And the things that we need to tend to, for example, find water that's actually watering. Now it's an opening of a cycle. I was next to Dana balcony. I cannot make this up. So, but in societies. Oh, and what I wanted to say about the women, they stop messing up with warlocks. What would they see? That they would begin to uncover more and more things. For the story of Medusa Gorgon, she was raped because she was not with men. She was very sensual, very, very beautiful. And the men around were only rapists. Many women may have experienced this, that we have been trying to connect with our femininity. And maybe, for example, I can give when I was in university in the Model UN. And at that time, I was trying to connect with my femininity. I went to coach about relationship, how men think, how women think, and so on and so forth. But surrounding me was the honeypots of intelligence. A honeypot, not just women, but also men that are traffickers and women are traffickers and so on. And for me, I didn't know that I was just trying to connect with my femininity. One day I sit in Model UN and we have after party and I try to mingle with people. Now I was always dressed the best I could afford. But then they would begin to do all kinds of weird things. And they try to look, probably somebody did appearance magic because they tried to traffic. But the minute I enter the circle of conversation, I'm quiet because I still don't know the people. And I said it's good chance to, I don't want to say the word network because now I understand what networking is, but then I didn't know that. So I was like, okay, let's see who are these people, all intelligent people, competent people, men and women. And they were supposed to be Model UN in Barcelona. The minute I enter, they speak about buying clothes in Barcelona. What clothes will they buy? So I wait and wait and wait and hope to see what else do they talk about. From my point of view, I was expecting nothing. And I stand there for maybe 20 minutes, maybe more. Clothing. H&M, H and this, H and that, and so on. All clothing. And I think what is around me smart people. But this, if I buy clothes, I buy clothes in deals. Well, let's say I bought pants this week. I managed to find pants. First of all, I buy when I need, and then I managed to find pants cost maybe 1/4 or 1/6 or 1/7 of. Okay. And then I said, well, I need pants. I will buy pants so that I will have pants. But elegant pants, less than 1/2 of the price. And so it's looking okay. And I have clothes. That's it. I need the clothes. I buy clothes. But with all these people, they were seeing me well dressed. And they were intelligence. So they were trying to see what would make me talk. And they knew nothing about me because I was just sitting there. I had my friend, we were both left handed. We would go to do fitness together, to the gym together, and eat a salad. And that's pretty much it. And when I had no money, she would be with the person that only person would agree to meet with me, and she's old money. And she said, with us, we have money because we only buy for what we need, and so on and so forth. And for me, I was pretty much the same. It's what people didn't know. If I would buy clothes, it would be for functionality. And this is because my mother was also a fashion designer. So I didn't feel the hunger for clothes shopping or something like that. In fact, so sometimes it was even a drain to me. I would buy clothes for what is in good deal. Um, and with food was the problem that I had no energy for to prepare food. Um, but I liked the nourishing food. And nobody would know anything about me because I was not too outspoken. Yeah, before the Me Too, So all they tried to say, what can they talk about to make me talk? And they talked about clothes, and that was a myth. And not only that, I was wearing the clothes not to attract anybody, but to connect with my own femininity. And then I saw how difficult it is to move around the world as a woman. And I also saw that if I would try, because I went to a relationship coach, if I would try to date men, one of them tried to do psychological testing of me, but another, I don't know, like, I did not feel like I can be a woman with any one of them. Why? Because of all the society was rapey. But then even person I cohabited was way younger than me, so I didn't think with anything that he would want with me. And I saw him as friend. And it seems like he understood that I don't like all these, what we call them zanaim, which basically people that are not behaving like men. Now he even said to me, "But you need to go outside. When you go outside, you need to have a honker so you can honk back at all the the weirdos." So I thought this person understands me. I guess it was a mistake. I don't know. Uh, for this person, one day with a woman, a lady that was my roommate, and his sister tells us that his friend was Mason, took him to a prostitute, paid for him, and he described it to us what it was like to be with this prostitute. He was seeing organs, and he was basically describing a man in dissociation. He was describing a man who was raping himself. Later along the years, he would say, "I was not feeling loved, but it harmed his sexuality, and I suffered because of that. Because as I was curating from this weird society, he began to deal with whatever he projected put on me that was wrong." This is what I understand. It's basically, and if he would go there with Masons, then he would have to watch a lot of porn, he would have to commit treason, he would have to rape, and so on and so forth. And if he got a position, if he stayed in academia, the persistent position, it shows that he agreed to many things that I did not. So, no, basically, with this society, a woman cannot relax and be a woman, and the men are like this because they are raped in a secret societies. And then they're raped, so they have to rape. And then the girls, of course, no girls are virgins. It's not that a woman has to be married, virgin, or anything like that. In fact, the very thing that wants to call for purity or being pristine is ending up a Medusa Gorgon story, because actually the girls that are glowy and beautiful, they are raped. And it's actually when women connect with their femininity that they are raped or molested or siphoned and so on and so forth. And it's not about discernment. It's actually the girls who are discerning. The girls that say, I can't be, I don't know what. And in the beginning, it's kind of like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't seem to be relaxed into sensuality. This man, he wants sensuality. I don't feel like something's not something for me. And he feels scary, but it's like, it's so weird. Why every man identifies like this? Maybe I need to do even deeper shadow work and so on and so forth. But he said, do even deeper shadow work. And the relationship coach said to me, you must always be mysterious to men. And I said, what about the orgasm? And then I thought, oh my God, this, because she was used to men stressing her to orgasm. So she was never able to fully relax into a man. Married. And then I said, okay, maybe we have opportunity. There are all these J-Day courses. And I said, okay, but maybe instead of complaining about the Me Too, let's actually make money by helping the people stop rape culture. And they make good money, but the business model was such that they went to some sales coach, and he said that we have to run conversation with women and say to her, do you, first of all, we get all the information and so on, and then we say, do you want to go with your fear, or do you want to choose yourself, when choosing yourself would be buying the product? And I says, no, this is gaslighting. And the women complained about this attitude, which I did not agree to implement. And then I noticed that there is an issue, because these women were never aligned with a yes, no, and maybe. Our products are supposed to align them with a yes, no, and maybe, but to know what their own and to stand on their own. And then I have to make a sale, not really knowing if the woman is really, is actually in consent. And that, of course, affects the wealth and affects the money. And the business model was such that we were allowed to work part-time jobs and so on and so forth, but it was not, even though the sales were good, it was not business, that the business model could not sustain the employees, but it was housing and so on and so forth. And I tried to think of maybe with another business model, but then our founder had the issue with her own divorce and so on, and estrangement, and parents were taken, and boyfriend was leaving, she leaving boyfriend, and so on. And I said, okay, but and then I was dealing with targeting as well. So I saw with all the foundations of everything. And then there was another nice group. I began to work with energy crystals. And I was, in the beginning, it was malachite with what I saw that this thing actually has something to it. There is the chakras. It's a very simple technique. The colors of the chakras, colors of crystals. Now, of course, we can know more about the crystals. I will know every single detail and so on, because I loved this, but I would say something exercise for people that came to social media groups and lives. I say, we choose color or choose stone. And I would know about the stone, and I would know about the color. So I would give them message relevant to them. And they were crazy about this because it resonated. Then in that group begin to be ladies that try to market OnlyFans. And they're trying to recruit women. And the lady of managing the group, she did not block them, and I had to disappear.